Welcome to the next chapter, measurements and scaling techniques. So when we go for a research, or even though in a daily life also, we'll go for multiple things for measuring and accounting the measurements. These things are very important as far as research is concerned. So whenever we are implementing the research related things, so we will be accounting the things in the form of numerics, and these numerics will help us for generating a result, and even noting the result will also help us the measurement and the related things. The most widely used classification of measurement scales are nominal scale, assigning numbers, symbols to events in order to label them. So whenever we are talking about something, then we will be referring those items with the help of some numbers, and these numbers will definitely uh, allow us to identify it as and when required. So this identification is needed, but in addition to that, this identification will also help us for noting it or for accounting it. So this is a generalized technique for referring it with the numerical numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, A, B, C, D, and etc. so on. This measurement scale we can talk about uh, for defining uh, the regular items as well as data sets. For example, when most of us has already studied in the state school, and securing mark itself is some kind of technique used for measuring the performance of one student. So we used to get the percentage in the form of 68.87 and something like 87.37 and so on. So these percentage of numbers will also allow us for uh, understanding the performance out of 100. And when we arrange all the numbers in some particular format, then we ourselves can be able to identify that which person has secured a larger number of marks. And this scale will define us that who is topper of the class or a school. This particular technique is not available nowadays, but we as in our school, we have definitely studied or definitely know the percentage of marks mechanism. This percentage of marks definitely helped us for distinguishing a person who has secured 78.3 and 78.4 and even 78.45 marks also. The point has discriminated or distinguished the performance of every student very nicely. The scaling thing for percentage is also modified for differentiating or for classifying the students in the first class, distinction, second class, fail, etc. This is again a second kind of scaling method which is generally used, or we were using it for discriminating the people or the students. So the same mechanism can be used in other uh, purposes also. Nowadays, this scenario has been changed in the schools. They are providing grades A, A plus, B, B plus, etc. So this form is a new mechanism for classifying the people, for considering or allowing them to belong to a defined class. Again, they have mapped the, the percentage scheme into the into some particular group, and a particular group has been represented with a number or a character like a A. A may be having 81 to 90, 89 or 90 marks, or A plus may be having 91 to 100 marks. So this is how the differentiation between the marks can be done for identifying a group of people in that particular class. So these are the some examples for measurement scales, and that can differ from project to project or a requirement of that particular project. So ordinal scale places event in order, but there is no scale for some rules. So it is a generalized method where we are trying to differentiate between the things, uh, not only with the numbers, but we can say that, okay, this is bigger, this is smaller, this is larger, this is greater. So that's all. But they are not going to provide how much it is, this, but we still are able to differentiate between the items or the objects. Then the interval scale, there's some rules are has been set for establishment or using some particular scale. So these rules are for from which to what can be defined in a particular scale. That is what we have defined. A rule has been set to say that A grade has been allocated to the student who have scored marks between 81 to 100. Sources of errors in measurement. So just now we have seen there are number of measurement methods available, but in addition to that, the measurement can also be considered when we are going to group the item, collect the data from the people or from some observation. So this can also be accounted, and a data set will be created which can be further used for processing of or experimenting. While doing all these things, when we go to a person for collecting information as a data set, for example, we go to a student and ask him for the subjects what he is studying, how much he is interested in each subject. So when we go to each person, we have to tell him that what we are doing, what kind of information we want, how we are going to collect the information. If we do not tell him, so he may not be able to explain or tell the information what is desired. So for that, we should make him aware. Second, the person who is collecting information, he should be in a position to get the information in a right way. If either of this goes wrong, then the information collected will be unuseful or maybe wrong. So to avoid it, we should make a proper awareness, make a proper questionnaire with which we can collect a proper information and account it. Second, situation, condition which places a strain on interview. So when we go to the person from where, or when we go to a place from where we are going to get information, if the conditions are not as per the expectation, then the error may be generated. For example, if we are going to ask the questions to a student, and he recently had a punishment for not submitting assignment or something else, so he may not be in a good position, good condition to answer your questions. So the condition, this is one of the examples. So such a kind of conditions may be or may create a big problem or can be considered as a erroneous measurements. Third point, which creates lots of error in the measurement, is the interviewer's behavior, style, and looks may encourage or discourage respondents. If we are going to collect information from a particular person, so as I said, the person who is going to collect information, he should be properly aware of the information collection procedures. So when he go to a student and he ask him rudely, then the respondent may discourage and will not tell you the correct answers, which may lead to the error generation or incorrect information accounting. So this has to be changed. This has to be taken in account and corrected as and when required. Fourth is instruments. The instruments what we are using should be right, accurate, and approved by some particular agency. Then also we can use it. So these are the few things we need to take care while measuring and collecting information from a source. Then tests of good measurement. So when we collect information, everybody feels that okay, whatever we have collected is good. But what is good? So there must be some scale to define that this particular information is right, correct. So the information which is valid should be known as correct information. But what is valid? The validity refers from the place where we have selected what kind of samples we are supposed to get from some particular location. So the group of samples we already have defined, and if the sample collection in group is very good and very uh, satisfactory, then the information collected must be valid. Second, reliability. So we should be very much confident or stable with the information what we have collected, and that should be very much available and usable throughout our project experimentation. Test of practicality. We are not supposed to assume many of the things. We should be stick to the practical uh, data collection methods. The assumptions are invalid. Yes, we are definitely able to assume, but this assumptions can be accepted, but not always. For some particular definition, these are valid. But practical data collection is always useful and will be allowed to get proper uh, usable data collection methods. Scale classification basis. So when we are going to define that this particular, once the data has been collected, so this data has to be classified in some particular classes. And once we define the classes, these classes can be further used for training and testing in the experimentation. But in the first stage, when we collect the data collection should be in a very accurate way. Then only the class definition will be useful. Otherwise, it will be erroneous. So in this case, we should consider some of the basic points for collecting information, for generating a good classes or classification. The first topic or first thing is source orientation. The the place, the location, the person from which we are going to collect the information is important. The As in the previous slide we were talking about, the respondent should be in a position to explain you or provide you a good information. So he should be able to understand the subject first, then only he can or he will explain or provide you the required information. So the characteristics of the respondent is important. Characteristics, how can we define a characteristic of a respondent? Characteristics in the sense he should be a sample of the required source. He should be a correct sample. If he is a chosen sample, then he should be in a position to explain you the things. Means his mentality is good. He should be aware of the information which has to be delivered and so on. Second is response form. Response form is the information what we are collecting from the respondent. If we have already prepared a very good questionnaire, so he will be able to respond it very properly, very accurate and to the point. So this response form will help us for collecting information. Sometimes the detailed answers are not expected, so he will be able to put yes no kind of format. He will be able to provide a rating 1 to 10 in this particular scale. He will be able to provide a percentage also, how out of 100, so how many number of percentage for that particular answer, and etc etc. So this kind of response form can be prepared so that the answers will be quite accurate from all the respondents. Third is degree of subjectivity. Subjective personal preference or simply make no preference judgments. So the preferences will be defined as per the subject for which we are collecting information. The preferences wise information collection will help us for defining the importance of that particular subject, the rating, the important rating of that particular subject. So when we prepare a questionnaire, so we will put all the important questions in a particular scale or in particular location with a defined preference, and this will be helpful for getting information. If we have 100 interviewer who are collecting information from different locations or from different people, so everybody should get a proper response form on which they can collect information from the respondents, and that will be very good for collecting a data and your data set creation method. Next is scale of properties. So the scale, as when in the response form we are able to create the proper scales. Nominal scale, we can use some of these like nominal scales, ordinal, interval, as well as ratio scale kind of scaling methods. So these scaling methods will help you for again in the response form, so that the numerical data can be collected with the as per the requirements. Even mapping can be done. If you are asking for a person how much each subject uh, likes you, he is not able to tell in the form of uh, this is better, that is better, but you can put a scale for that out of 10. He can tell you that mathematics I like 9 out of 10. The liking of history is like 6 out of 10. So this can help us for preparing the properties for every dimension that we are going to provide to the respondent. Number of dimensions, unidimensional or multidimensional scale. It depends on everyone's individual definition of data set, how many dimension information he is supposed to collect for his own research. It depends on that. Once we collect all the data, then we are supposed to scale the data as well, because this particular data scaling is not satisfactory if we do it in a wrong way. For that, we are supposed to use a proper approach for constructing groups of the data. So the group itself is a scaling. Groups of a data set can be generated only with the scaling. And for that scaling, we are supposed to define some particular approach. Arbitrary approach, ad hoc basis. In this particular approach, we can define our own classes, our own groups, or our own scale for defining the method, defining a group. Ad hoc basis means every individual can have his own. For example, if I am working on a tree classification method, The tree is having multiple dimensions like the age, the kind of fruits it will have, and the area of the tree, and etc etc. So the dimensions of multiple trees have been collected, and depending on that, if I want to generate a group of the items, so it depends on my own liking or my own requirement of a project. If I am just thinking about, or my preference is just to talk about the height of the tree, then depending on that I can create my own rule with which I can classify, or we can say that I can generate my own scale for classifying the trees. Then the second is consequences approach, that is standard well defined. This particular approach will have to be referred from some particular book or the journal. Very well defined. Many people have defined their own approach. We ourselves can will be knowing that which are conventional methods used for the standard or well-defined approach. Next is item analysis approach. So depending on the data what we have collected, we are supposed to analyze them. It's like a kind of clustering method with which we will be able to know that what kind of scaling method we should use so that the discrimination between the items will be more successful or more group oriented. So this particular approach will help us for defining a particular scale for classification. Then we can arrange the group, arrange the data in a ascending order or descending order, so that with that particular approach we will be able to group it into a uh, particular classes. For example, we have already used in our school days, the the descending order method will help us to get a first person who has secured larger marks as a topper of the class. The people above 70% who has secured marks are known as the the people has secured uh, distinction grade. The people who has scored less than 75 and more than 60 are considered in a first class group. Then less than that will be considered as second class, and so on. So this is what cumulative scale is. Then the factor scale, it depends on the items that we use. Depending on those items we can define a factor scale, and which will be further used for. Okay, we'll look for some of the important scaling techniques. So when we go for collecting a data, and the complete huge data has been collected, now let's start about thinking of the grouping mechanism of the data. So when we want to group the data into particular class, into set of classes, then we need a lot of information collected from the respondent. The respondent will provide you more information in a sorted form, then only it will help you to generate the classes. Otherwise it's going to be very difficult. You need to put all your efforts again for creating a classes, and need to apply a lot much different methods. So to avoid it, what we can do is, when we are providing a respondent form to the respondent, we will provide different questionnaires, and into that questionnaire he will be able to answer in a particular format. Some formats are the rating scale. If we are asking a student that which subject do you like, then he will say a particular name of a subject. Instead of that, we can ask him, how do you rate or how do you like a subject known as mathematics? So he can rate it into different formats like bad, good, better, very nice, or he is working for that particular subject in an outstanding way. So these can be the measures which will provide you the liking of that particular subject. Then we will also have different things like providing a scale from 1 to 10. So the performance of a student in the drawing subject will be recorded in the form of 1 to 10. 10 may be higher, 1 may be lower. So accordingly, you can define some particular rating scale for understanding the input or his view about that particular answer. Nowadays, many companies like Amazon and all, Amazon, Flipkart, etc., they are selling their product on in the market, but they are also getting lots of information from the users. The information is collected in the form of star ratings out of 5. So 4 star, 3 star will be helpful for other users by understanding the reviews of the people who have already purchased that particular item. So this is how they are collecting a data, and data will be sorted, or the data will be used for sorting a particular product into 4 star rate, 4 star and above rating, 3 star and above rating, 2 star and above rating. So this is how the scaling mechanism has also used in different locations. Method of paired comparison. So sometimes if the rating is not possible, we can ask a question like, do you like this particular subject? He may say yes and no. So he will either have one of the option, either to say yes or to say no. So the comparison based mechanism will help you for providing a different kind of scaling technique. In this scaling technique, the user can provide 2 or 3 different things for a comparison, so that the respondent just have to think about the answers I've provided to him. So depending on that, the data is collected and further used for classification. Again, the method of rank order. The method, this particular method has been used if we have lot many items and we need to get a preference out of the available items to the respondent. He will provide the preference 1, 2, 3, 4 out of 100 items, and with this we can get the input from him, his observations or his liking or his preferences or his understanding will be collected and accounted. So this is how, these are the few techniques we can understand and use for getting a data from the respondent for our research. Now we understood the measurement scale for our research, and we can apply these measurement scale for generating a data and gathering or converting it into groups. So I request you all to create your own data set and tell me that how you will apply a scale to your data set. Thank you.